Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's our favorite time of the week because the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves are right here on the table in front of me. So let's check them out. All right, so first thing up today, some of the new K-Bar, or the new K-Bar fixed blades that we saw at SHOT Show are already here, which is very exciting. There's three models, the first of which is this, the Apex, a Peter Janda design. These are coming in about 107 for these. Materials are GFN for the handles in this slightly green texture. It's not quite gray, like there's just a hint of color to it. But I'd still probably call it gray rather than green first, but hey, what are you gonna do? Blade steel is D2. We've got a crowned spine on this spine, which is cool. 3.9 inches of blade D2 steel for a lot of edge retention and enough thickness there to grant the steel enough strength for some heavier uses. You certainly could do that with a knife like this. The way I kind of see this is definitely tactical applications, but more in an everyday carry scenario or type of situation rather than like a combat scenario. Could certainly be a good duty knife for frontline officers though too, I would say. The spine is a long straight clip point. You've got a swedge along with a saber height flat grind there. Good cross section of enough sliceability for everyday carry stuff, but it is leaning a little bit more towards the more robust side of things. The handles are nice and slim. You've got these narrower, essentially pinch points front and back. A pinch grip on that front bolt right there feels very nice and very agile. And you can do sort of the same thing in a reverse grip, although I'm not trained in tactically combative knife usage.
You don't say.
You don't say. See, like this is how you hold it, right? That's gonna go somewhere. Don't do that. But it feels good in an inverted grip for sure. You got a little bit of a protruding tang there at the back, showing the full tang construction, just kind of wrapped over on the edges with the GFN right here. The sheath is, injection molded. Comes with two DOTS MOLLE compatible straps right here on the back, but with slots and holes on the side. Pretty much any aftermarket attachment method will work, generally speaking. So tech locks, certainly very easy. Ulti-clips as well. Joining this knife, we have the Dust series, the Dust 1, the longer of them, and the Dust 2, the slightly shorter. Varies a little bit from the Apex. The color of the handles are the same, but the Dust series has a little bit of give to it. It's a slightly rubbery texture, as opposed to the harder plastic type of feel on the Apex. But everything about these knives, especially the Dust series, I like how nice they're finished. I mean, there are subtle details here that when you feel it or when you pick it up and you hold it, you're like, oh yeah, I like that. You can see why Spyderco builds some of their best knives in Taiwan these days. We've got a crowned spine. We've got a crowned crossguard on this knife as well, which is really nice. The Dust 1 is coming in about 110 with a just over 6-inch blade, and this is sort of an alternative to something like the classic American-made K-Bar fighting knife, the Mark II. It's along similar lines to that pattern, but you've got, actually, is that a straight back or is that a trailing point technically? Oh, it's a straight back spine. Okay, I thought it might be trailing just a little bit, but it's the curvature of that swedge giving that impression just a little bit. But nice higher flat grind here, not quite a full flat obviously as you can see, but again, enough toughness going on thanks to the thickness of the blade here despite using D2 right there. Thickness looks to be about 5/32 of an inch based on my micrometers as well. The Dust 1 is the more combat oriented of the two Dust pairs. As such, it has this Apex here at the back screwed in for crushing and breaking and smashing, you know what I'm talking about. The Dust 2 is slightly shorter and maybe slightly more versatile. $104 for this 5¼ inch blade, straight back with a full flat on this blade. Same thickness, but with the full flat, it's gonna be a little bit slicier and I think still plenty durable. And no crossguard here on the front. You just got, can't really call it a ferrule really, but you've got the cap here on the end. Again, nice crowned edges, everything super comfortable, but no, slidey forward finger protecty bits. It's a technical term. You can look it up. And a flat plate at the back rather than the crusher pommel right there. But check out the handles as well. I love the shape of them. Got really nice swells, a contour that just fits in the hand. From the side, you can obviously see the traditional K-bar influence, but unlike the stacked leather handles of the standard K-bar, got way more ergonomic considerations in the shape of this handle. Sheaths, just like the Apex, are injection molded with the 2 MOLLE compatible straps and versatility in attachment options. Next up, we've got an auto, a blacked out, or almost a more black, version of the Defiant 7 Valmara, a Les George design. $305 for this. You've got a black DLC coated blade, 3¼ inches, and that is CPM 154, which is not the same as 154 CM. I always feel compelled to mention that because I know it can be confusing sometimes. CPM 154 is a powder metal version of 154 CM, and the big benefit of that change in how the steel is put together is a big bump in toughness compared to standard 154 CM, which is good on a knife that might see some rough use, such as this. Still got some style though. It's not just a designed in the dark brute force tool. Like there's some definite aesthetic considerations going on. Feels pretty good in the hand. It's got one of those kind of in-between grips. Normally when my pinky hits right here, which it kind of does on this knife, I don't usually like it, but this one's just enough for me to kind of slide behind it just a little bit and not feel like it's out of place, which is kind of a neat trick. Part of that's probably because the way the blade naturally sits when I grab with my index finger and my thumb here is it tilts forward a little bit, and that cants the back end of this handle just so that my finger, my pinky finger fits on the inside and is ready to go. Hand sizes vary, so your mileage will of course vary as well. Standard pocket clip here on the right side, push button automatic. Action is very good. Handle is aluminum. It is ribbed for a little bit of extra texture, but only lightly and kind of on the shoulders. But it gives a nice impression both visually and in the hand. The latest Sprint Run 15V Spyderco is in the house. This is the Military 2, and it's featuring that 15V blade steel that just offers heaps of edge retention. Not a stainless though, so keep that in mind. But if edge retention is what you're after, 15V has definitely been making waves these last couple of years. Handles have the standard accompanying brown G10, which is kind of the theme they're running through these 15V sprint runs here. And it's the Military 2, so you've got a 4-inch straight-backed blade here, full flat grind, tough at the back, narrow at the tip for better slicing and better penetration, of course. You've got Spyderco's finger choil, or maybe we should start calling this the arched ricasso right here. Spyderco calls it a finger choil though, giving you choke up potential for finer control of that larger blade, or you can reach back into the main section and still have plenty of grip. Even with my slightly larger than average hands, I have more handle than I need, quote unquote here, but that gives you a little bit more reach. And especially if you choke way back, you can kind of point a little more as well. Point forward, point down a little more naturally. 4-position pocket clip, so you can carry it up, down, left or right. And the compression lock, giving you finger-safe closing action in addition to flickability and very strong lockup in that open position, which is always a good thing. Next up, we've got a bunch of CJRB knives. The first is this Fugly boy. And I had to say it because the name of the knife is Fugly, actually. And it is one of those strange shapes, or interesting shapes, shall we say. Distinctive, yes, that works very well. What you get here, though, is a 3.5-inch modified sheep's foot blade. $48 for this knife. RPM 9 steel, so essentially a spray-formed upgrade to your typical 9CR series stainless. You're going to get a bit more toughness out of that steel and very capable edge retention in this price range at least. Gray G10 handles, which are really more of kind of a slate blue here, and that goes really nicely with the gold thumb stud. I wanted to say pivot collar, I don't know why. Thumb studs right there as well, which is nice. Deep carry pocket clip, right side inset with flush head screws, not lefty compatible in this case, and we have a liner lock for the closure. 2 ways to open it. Thumb studs, which work great, ball bearings in the pivot, of course. And you've got a front flipper, which I haven't tried yet. So here, watch me fail. Hey, it works all right.
Next time, guys.
What if I failed that time? That would have been the next time. You may be asking yourself, these two slashes in the blade here, will that work for like the reverse flick? And I was gonna say, I've not been able to get it, but then if I just committed a little bit more, I would have gotten it that time. Okay, I stand corrected.
You're silly.
Listen, we don't have time for this nonsense today.
I got time.
But it's got a pretty full handle on it. You have, I wouldn't call this a finger choiled. It's more of a, well, I suppose we could actually, because it does intersect the edge, even if the shape is a little bit different than is conventional. But you've got a choke up point for finer control of that broad blade. And you've got a blade that, you know, the handle kind of kicks up at an angle a little bit, which is usually opposite to what you see. And the advantage for that is on stronger push cuts down like this, it really excels because you can keep the edge essentially perpendicular to what you're cutting and keep that angle a little differently or a little better sometimes than another type of design. It also gives you a little bit of knuckle clearance if you're using that tip on a surface, doing any kind of scoring or pull draw cuts through stuff. That will also be an aid right there. And the price is very good too. Next up, we have the Kain from CJRB, coming in at a very reasonable $38 for what you're getting here. Again, RPM 9 steel, just under 3 inches long, and aluminum handles with an inset liner lock and reversible pocket clip. This reminds me a lot of the Kershaw Epistle. That's been discontinued for a few years. But this is kind of in a similar vein to a classier everyday carry that you can dress up or dress down. It works well in both formal and informal contexts, I would say, and the specs on this knife, the steel especially, is a bit of a bump over that old Epistle design too. But it's gonna work pretty nicely. It's about a 3-finger grip for me, using the standard index finger positioning hole or positioning arch right there. My pinky tucks nicely behind it as well. So it's a smaller knife, but it's gonna get the job done. And if I needed to choke up on this knife, there's just enough space around that pivot where I can definitely do that and push it a little bit harder. It's got a full, just about a full 3 inches on that blade. So, do the math essentially. That's a quite compact carry when it's in your pocket, not gonna take up a ton of space. If you wanted a knife you're gonna use more regularly for heavier use, this might not be the right choice, but for something that could go that way, when you need it to, but really you're just gonna more often be using it for just basic everyday stuff, opening packages, that sort of thing, this could be a good option. And this is a good illustration of that downward facing edge, which is different from the Fugly. I always like that, especially on smaller knives, because it makes it a little easier to use the tip on a drop point blade like this, because you're having to bend your wrist less to access the tip, essentially. So there you go, nice little knife. The Kain, $38. Next up, we've got 3 CJRBs upgraded with an OD green micarta. The first is the Hectare Alt. That is the modified Wharncliffe bladed version of the Hectare, and you've got this kind of more rough finished matte micarta right here, OD green in this case, as opposed to a higher satin or even glossy finish. Gives it a little bit more feel, a little bit more texture in the hand. Has that soft nature to it. Of course, it's not a soft material, it's still highly rigid, but that's the impression you get, or the feeling you get under your fingers when you're gonna hold this type of finish. 3.1-inch blade, SF2 blade steel, which we've seen only recently starting to make its way out, whereas their RPM 9 is a spray form version of 9CR. SF2 is basically more or less a spray form version of 154 CM. So you're gonna get more edge retention than the 9CR, and you're gonna get more toughness than your basic 154 CM. Not the same amount of toughness, I would think, as you would with CPM 154. We're really getting into the weeds now, which is a full particle metal version of the steel. Spray form is, to grossly oversimplify things, it's kind of in between particle metallurgy and traditional ingot steel. Like I said, I'm grossly oversimplifying there, but that gets you sort of the idea of what's going on. Grip for me, 4 fingers just, works quite well with my slightly larger than average hands, but if I choke up just a little bit, I can get a real solid gorilla grip on this knife. Geometry is thin enough with a high flat grind that this is going to be a nice slicer, and you've got that very acute tip for piercing work as well. Reversible deep carry pocket clip as well, should mention that. The next one receiving this OD green micarta treatment is the Bowie bladed Pyrite, and they've given it some sort of mountain tread texture along with that material upgrade in this case. This one's coming in at about 86 bucks right now. Did I mention the price on the Hectare Alt? I didn't. That's also same price essentially, 86 bucks. Blade length here, 3.11. Blade length on the Bowie, 3.05. Actual sharpened edge, you get a little bit more with the Bowie, however, even though the Hectare Alt kind of is ostensibly a longer bladed knife if you measure it from tip to scale. But as you can see, the sharpened edge difference there reveals a slightly different story. But you got that nice, cool Bowie style aggressive clip point here. Again, you've got a reversible pocket clip. This one is inset. It's not on the Hectare right there. And you've got the button lock giving you that nice, fidgety, and also finger-safe closing action, just like the crossbar lock on the Hectare. Thumb studs, you can open it that way as well. And you've got the really cool, it's almost like a dished fuller going on. It's very distinctive looking and gives you plenty to latch onto for a reverse flick too. Cool EDC knife, a little more aggressive with that Bowie style blade, of course, than some of the other versions of the Pyrite. The third to get this OD green micarta right now is this Ray Laconico design. It's the Prado, and they've changed this one from a crossbar lock, which the standard Prado is, to a button lock. And this is a bigger knife than the other two, 3 3/4 inch blade, about $95 for this. Again, all three of these knives have that SF2 steel that we mentioned. Nice graceful clip point on the Prado, high flat grind, gonna slice pretty nicely. It's not too thick to counteract the geometry of that high flat grind right there. Pocket clip is reversible, non-inset in this case. You do have a lanyard post on this knife right here that you can see too, which is nice. So even though you don't have a lanyard hole, you still have the ability for a lanyard right there. Action is quite good on the button lock. The handle on the Prado is very comfortable, especially since you've got a bit of contour on this one as opposed to the flat handled versions that we've seen before. That goes the same with the Hectare. I forgot to mention that. You've got contour to that handle. You may have some contour. Yeah, we do have some contour to the Pyrite, but you don't perceive it as much thanks to the other milling tread that's going on there. But the Prado feels really good. It's got a nice wide enough shape to fill the hand, and that nice feel of that micarta is also quite nice. A lot of reach on this knife for sure. And from Artisan Cutlery, which is CJRB's parent company, we've got the new Wizard series of knives. There's a range, there's 3 of them right now, starting at about $213, going up to about $750. That's for a full Timascus handled version right here, or right there. This one is the middle version, coming in at $320 and some change. We have got Timascus inlay on the front and the back, milled Timascus clip, milled floating backspacer also of that Timascus material. And are the pivot collars? The pivot collars are also Timascus. So it is a fairly exotic material. It's more expensive to use on a production knife, hence the price, and hence the sky-high price of the full Timascus handle version right now. The $213 and change version comes with Arctic Storm fat carbon inlays and no Timascus, so bringing the price down by over $100 versus this version right here. But the blades are all the same. They're all S90V, 3.5 inches long, and the blades all appear bigger than the handle should be able to accommodate. I mean, this is, if you don't like your folders to feel like they have massive handles and tiny blades, this one is definitely going to be something worthy of checking out. Lots of blade to handle right here. And about a 3.5 finger grip in the standard section, but you've got a gentle area here around the ricasso where you could choke up, get that finer control, kind of like a finger choil, and then a gorilla grip for me is going to work quite nicely. Button lock, so you've got the same benefits that we talked about already. Thumb studs for actuation or front flipping. Hey, not too bad. And the other really cool detail I haven't mentioned yet is this piece of Timascus right here. That's the filler plate for the reversible pocket clip. And you can see from this pocket clip as well, there's no outside visible screws. It screws in from the inside. The same goes for this little jeweled filler tab right here. You can see it sticks up just a little bit. The edges are beveled. It looks almost like a rupee or something like that. Some real, like a gem-like quality to it. It's really nice. Very premium feeling, very nice action, and some very cool details to boot. Next up, similar coloration, we have the Jack Wolf Primo Jack. These are actually dropping the Friday after this video post, so tomorrow, if you're watching this as this video goes up. This is one of 4 versions that are going to be available in this release. All of them coming in at $350 with an S90V blade, full hollow grind with a very, very thin edge, and S90V, of course, giving you a stainless steel with a lot of edge retention. 3¼ inches on that clip point shape, and essentially a Barlow styled handle. You've got titanium liners and bolsters, which are integral to one another. This version has Crystal Lake Kieranite for the inlays, and you've got a milled pocket clip and a bolster style frame lock right there, which is going to give you locking performance with a traditional looking knife. You can flick it open thanks to the dual fullers on the blade. You could front flip it. I haven't tried yet. Actually, I did try earlier. I lied. That one I did, and it works quite well. Now, Jack Wolf, of course, is traditionally known, or more known, probably for their slip joints. So this is taking that brand identity and giving you a locking option. But they still give you some nods to like slip joint carry. You can take this pocket clip off if you want, and they include a small filler tab that you could replace that with. Gives you a little, pocketed piece that'll just sit right there. So you can carry it without the clip. Be one less thing to potentially pinch your hand. But in the packaging, as someone noteworthily corrected me in the last time we showed one of their locking knives, usually you get a pocket slip in the aluminum tube these knives come with, but with their locking knives that have pocket clips, you don't. So you won't have that. But you will get the POG with the custom artwork, the cleaning cloth as well, and there you get the custom artwork that you see for this particular release. Each release has its own art, which is always very cool, and looks cool if you are collecting and displaying these too. There you go. The Primo Jack. If you don't want to collect it, if you want to actually use it, it's going to be great. It's going to cut really well. Other handle materials, black linen micarta, a gold dark matter fat carbon, and a rosewood will also be available in this drop. Next up, Kunwu, which is not a new brand, but it's a new brand to the KnifeCenter. We've been able to bring some of their hits in as we're working on getting some of their newest releases. The first here is the Padre. Let me show you this really cool customer here. This is a premium knife, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but titanium handles, a Vanax steel blade, which you could kind of compare it to MagnaCut in some ways. It has, maybe a little bit more edge retention than MagnaCut. It's also highly stainless like MagnaCut. It does give up some in the toughness area to MagnaCut. If you're going for a tougher blade steel, MagnaCut might still be a better choice if all things else were being equal. But it is a very cool blade, distinctive shape. It's a slightly on the thicker side, although I wouldn't call it thick, but you have such a broad profile and a nice high flat grind that the geometry is still going to cut really nicely. Also, Damascus pivot collars on this knife as well. Price on this one is about $329. Frame lock for the action, locks up nice and tight as you can see. We've got a blade cutout for thumb opening or that nice reverse flick. It has a really nice clack going on. We've also got a front flipper, and this one I haven't tried yet, I promise. Not too bad. Could be slightly better maybe for me, but it works pretty well. But nice aggressive cutter, definitely makes a statement when you pull it out of your pocket. You can get it in this kind of dark stone washed as well as a more a lighter colored version as well right now. Next up, we have the S-TAO. This is a flipper with a 3.5-inch sheepsfoot blade, also with Vanax steel. $279 or so for this knife. Titanium with a bit of an orange peel texture, which feels nice. Damascus pivot collar on the front, but not the back. The Padre gives it to you on the back as well. Frame lock action is three-way essentially. You've got the blade cutout. Reverse flick works great. You've got a front flippy bit right there, and you could also flip it with the subtle flipper tab there at the back. Nice aggressive strong cuts thanks to that sheepsfoot blade, a little bit narrower in the pocket than the Padre. Milled clip, which is reversible, but if you notice there's also two little pockets right there which would suggest a wire pocket clip, and indeed they actually give you a wire pocket clip. If you'd rather have that than the milled titanium clip, you could switch it out. suppose with the right screw, you could put 2 pocket clips on there if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could. But anyway, that is the S-TAO. And next, sort of the same shape, but constructed, or a different product, essentially, is the CHAD. And it is a crossbar locking version of the S-TAO. And it's also featuring PM60 blade steel, which is not a particularly tough blade steel in the grand scheme of things, but it can achieve very high hardnesses and can hold an edge very, very nicely as well. I'm not quite sure where it compares to something like 15V or S90V or any of that sort of stuff, but edge retention is going to be quite good with this knife. The handles on this one are carbon fiber. This makes this version a little bit lighter. There are titanium versions also available, $250 for this carbon fiber version with the accents, gold accents here. And 3.88 ounces on this. So not super light, but for its size, it's not too bad. Now it could be lighter if they skeletonized the liners a little bit more, but it does have full length liners here to make sure it's got plenty of strength, even though carbon fiber is pretty strong, but you know what I'm talking about. Action is quite nice. You've got easy actuation on the crossbar thanks to these kind of angled caps that they've put affixed to the edges. Really smooth, actually. Are we dealing with washers or ball bearings? Yeah, they are ball bearings, but it has a little bit more of that kind of washer style feel in a way, which is interesting, as opposed to like that glassy, like, water skating across a hot skillet that a ball bearing can give you. Has a little bit more of that like silky, lubricated feel of a washer, but it is a ball bearing going on here. Very interesting. But anyway, that's Kunwu. More to come from the brand for sure. Last but not least, we got 2 Kizer knives. The first is the Silver Wing, an X Series limited edition. $369 for this, and there is a lot going on at this price point for this knife. In a way, it reminds me a lot of some of Riot's releases in what you're getting here. 3.3-inch S90V blade, compound grinds on this one, but we've got a few different blade finish options and a few different grind options to choose from at this point in time. Titanium for the handles. Titanium inlays as well. I guess it's the same material, it's just finished differently. Check out the cool details there on the spine. The pocket clip is really nice. It's milled, but has a very cool swoopy shape to it, which is really nice. You've got a hidden lanyard point here at the back. This detail, I think, is especially impressive. Impressive might not be the right word, but noteworthy anyway. It looks like a mesh screen peeking out, but that's actually the same piece of titanium that this handle is made out of. They went in and drilled those holes very precisely and very time-consumingly to give it that effect. You can see from the inside that it's the same piece, which is really cool. Let's check out the action, shall we? You've got thumb studs, so you can do a standard open. You could flick as well, just make sure you're not putting pressure on the lock bar with your fingers. And it looks like we can also front flip. A lot of front flippers this week. So there you go. 3 to 3.5 finger grip on the main section for me. Choke up point for finer control or a Meteor Gorilla grip. You can do all of that with this knife. The details are excellent. The price is not low. It's $369, as I mentioned, but you be the judge. Are you getting a lot for your money? And last but not least, we have a Kizer fixed blade. This is the Little Rhino. $60 for this 2 3/4-inch AEBL blade. A steel I am very fond of. It is very tough, tougher usually than stuff like MagnaCut that we talk about, its toughness, but not gonna hold an edge as long, that's for sure. Not nearly as stainless as MagnaCut is either, but a very tough steel. So this is something, especially with this rectangular blade, where you could really push hard and not worry about, nearly to the same degree at least, about ruining the blade. It's a cleave rambit in a way, because you've got that reverse grip finger ring here. Not sure, I suppose it could be kind of self-defensive.
Cheese rambit.
It's a cheese rambit. It's a very good cheese knife, actually. Burlap micarta handles, nice and rugged, kind of fits the nature of the knife, I would say. And you've got a Kydex sheath with that 2-row style dots clip, although it still technically has 3 rows because they squeezed some extra ones in between there. But it's that narrower fit and standard, hole pattern there to accommodate that. Tech locks will work the same as well. There you go. That's all we've got time for today, folks. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. And to get your hands on the knives, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. Or you could split up payment on some of these more expensive knives if you want with our new Sezzle payment options. And also don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program to earn some free money on a future knife. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we are signing off. See you next time.